Here we go. I am very excited to dive into this conversation. It's neat that we go from musical artists writing songs for Little Big Town to talking about which, and that is stuff that matters. What, her being Hillary Reynolds being vulnerable and talking, putting herself out in the world. But then we're also talking about things that matter in trucking and in veteran issues. And our good friend Brad Bentley of FASTPORT has brought us two wonderful guest next to dive into with just that. Two powerhouses, right? By the way, doing real boots on the ground work for our nation's veterans. We have Colonel Sam Whitehurst, retired, Sam Whitehurst, and Wendy Lang from the Dixon Center for Military and Veterans Services. The Dixon Center, it isn't just about support, y'all. It's about action, which is very important. We'll talk about today. They're breaking down barriers for veterans and their families by connecting them with meaningful education, employment, and well-being opportunities. Stress, well-being opportunities, y'all. Colonel Whitehurst brings nearly 3 decades of leadership in the Army, including brigade command and directing the Army's Soldier for Life program. And Wendy Lang, she's basically, I'm going to call you the policy whisperer. Does that track?
That does track.
Okay, good. She's worked with everyone from governors to the Bush Institute to really make change in how we serve veterans and higher ed and beyond. She's also an equestrian, by the way, which makes her even cooler. We'll talk horses as well. So together they're leading initiatives like the Trucking Business Academy and a bold expansion into higher education, reform for military-connected students, and so much more. So today we're going to dive into it all. Welcome, Sam and Wendy. Good morning.
Thanks, Lindsay and Jimmy. It's great to be here.
Let's start, Sam, and thank you, by the way, for your service. Thank you for making the time to serve the people out there who are actually on the road and give them a chance to find out about Dixon Center. Talk to me, give me the 30,000-foot overview of the center and talk about what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dixon Center was founded in 2012, and Dixon Center was really born from an idea that was started by Admiral Mike Mullen, who was our 17th chairman of the Joint Staff back in 2010. Back during that time frame, as he traveled across the country, Admiral Mullen coined this term, the Sea of Goodwill. He would meet with organizations and communities, and all of them would ask him the question, how can we support our service members coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan? How can we support our veterans? Because we don't know how. We want to we want to support them, but we're unsure of how to do that. So he created an office within the Pentagon to focus on that, helping connect organizations and communities to someone that could share with them ideas and solutions and best practices to best support our veterans and their families. So from that office, 2 years later in 2012, the founders of Dixon Center took that idea and then brought it and made it a nonprofit, made it a veteran organization focused on doing just that, supporting individuals and communities who want to support our veterans, our transitioning service members, the families of our fallen, you name it, anyone who has a touch point with the military. There's just this strong desire that's still there to support that military and veteran community. But a lot of folks are just unsure of how to do it, and that's where the center comes in. That's where Dixon Center comes in. So we are a resource. We're a hub for, it could be employers, it could be other nonprofits, it could be universities and colleges, individual communities. If you want to integrate or better integrate veterans and families into your programs or into your organizations, we like to think we're the go-to resource that we can help you do that.
It's really important that they say and veterans and families, because this is a trickle-down thing. We realize what affects the veteran. If the veteran is not supported, it's going to be a trickle-down effect for that family member. So that's an important combination. Yep. And speaking of important combinations, you and Wendy, Sam and Wendy, are a great combination because you've got, from combat zones to Capitol Hill. Y'all are able to bridge that gap, I would assume, by working together. So talk about that. You have had boots on the ground in very different areas, but this is real world coming together. Wendy can say, okay, you've seen it, Sam. Right. Tell me how I can now go forth and prosper with it, right?
Yeah, and getting back to your earlier point with military families, we have a recruitment problem in this country, and outcomes is what we need to focus on. So if our generation of veterans is not having a good experience, they're not getting a job, but they're not having a good education experience, it's more likely that they will not recommend the military to their family members or their kids. So, the matter of legacy soldiers, airmen, Marines, whatnot, is a big deal, and that's why it's important that we do focus on the families.
It's also important that, as you guys have pointed out, the Dixon Center is a rally point in some ways. It's a rendezvous point and it's a hub, because you mentioned best practices earlier. And one of the great things about the United States is the states have always been the great laboratory of democracy, at which point it then filters back into Washington, D.C., and what was learned on the micro local level then ends up making its way upon the national stage. You guys are looking for solutions among the smallest of the small. I mean, it could be a small grocery store that just took the time to figure out how to best make accommodations to onboard young service members who have left the military and want to get a start, say, in Whole Goods, and just bring them in there. Say, we have found this works. That you guys are willing to listen to any and all ideas where there are veterans who, as Lindsay has said, and as you have just said, Wendy, the idea that I had a great time doing that, I feel like the military set me up for success. That's really what you're looking for. It's like 1,000 flowers blooming, and then you guys till the garden. Is that fair, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a tremendous amount of organizations out there. I've seen people throw around numbers like 45,000, 50,000 organizations in some fashion supporting veterans and their families. The challenge is not the resources, is that a lot of these efforts are siloed. People with great intentions doing great work, but they are kind of focused on one particular aspect. So one of the things we try to do is break down those silos, break down those barriers between organizations, because the best solutions for whatever challenges our veterans and their families are facing, it has to be holistic. It's not just a single point. And so that's what we do. We work with breaking down those silos, making connections, bringing coalitions together, public-private partnerships, bringing those together to help solve some of the challenges that we see. And we don't turn our back on the federal government. Whether it's the VA or the Department of Labor, there's are tremendous resources and organizations. But to your point, Jimmy, if you really want to understand the challenges that veterans are facing, and what we always focus on is community by community. The challenges that a veteran maybe experience in one community are different from another. So you have to go to those community-based organizations. No one knows their veterans better than those communities. So we always defer. You guys tell us, what are some of the challenges and solutions, and then we come in. How can we help you overcome those?
This might be a dumb question, but I'm known for those. So let's go.
Lindsay's dumb question of the day.
Thank you. You said you talked about 50 to 60,000 veteran organizations that are out there. I think people have good intentions and they're like, I want to do something. I want to support military. Affects me. It affects everyone. Obviously, I want to do something. What would you say though to somebody who's now like, I'm going to go out and start my own organization. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to start. I want to support. We get spread too thin that way rather than right. It would be.
Please don't.
Please don't. Don't do that. I have an organization called Dummies for Vets. That would be what I would start. I don't know, but it would be. How would you encourage somebody to say, why don't you look to the Dixon Center and see? Is that a good entry point to be like maybe? You can encourage how you can get involved in your community rather than trying to get something off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always want to encourage that involvement. Absolutely, we want to encourage that involvement. We don't want to discourage it. But Lindsay, to your point, if you really want to be effective, my first piece of advice would be look around you. Look around you. There are organizations in every community really doing great work. Look around and see how you can volunteer. One of the reasons that we focus on organizations and communities and individuals who are supporting veterans and their families is because we did not want to be another program providing direct services. Right. We have that, but we got to, like I said, we got to impact some of the structural challenges. We got to break down silos. So those who want to support our veterans and their families, look to Dixon Center. One of the things we do, we serve as a clearinghouse. We can help connect people to organizations who are having an impact. And that may be a nonprofit. It could be an employer. It could be a community. It's the whole range of organizations out there that we can help connect people to.
I have a feeling, by the way, and let me just say DixonCenter.org. I have a feeling, Wendy, that if I went to you and Sam and I said, we actually convinced a number of veterans organizations that when they hear somebody has a need for something and they aren't able to provide that need, for those organizations to say, I can't help you. However, let me pick up the phone right now, because I know 5 or 6 other organizations that I'm very, very close to who actually satisfy that particular need. That's kind of the game that we're talking about here. The idea is that I know what you do, you know what I do. If somebody shows up on my doorstep and I can't help them, I can, because I know you can help them.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wendy.
I'm a skeptic, and
As she sits with her arms crossed.
By the way, have you noticed the 2 optimists are on one side of the table and the 2 absolute cynics are over here?
I'm sitting by Sam. We're all rainbows over here.
Well, I say this. I've been in this business, and more so in higher education than anything else, for the last 17 years. And I want to make a little point here about higher education. There's a number that I really like to stress, and it's about, and again, the numbers change from minute to minute, but about 65% of those utilizing the GI Bill are first-gen learners, and that means a lot of things. They don't have the family support. I am a first-generation learner. Now, it was difficult for me, much less being in the military and having a big gap until you go back into academia. So services on college campuses often differ immensely. There's no uniformity. So you might have this program, you might have housing, I might not have housing, but I have a veterans organization. So one of the things that we're working on is trying to make it easier for veterans to know what's available at their institution. That's a project that we're working on. And with all the recent budgetary cuts and policy fluctuations, we now have schools that are losing funding. They're losing personnel. We did a study back 2020, and even during COVID, 30% of our respondents had lost personnel or lost funding. So now we have to, going back to Sam's point, connect these institutions, because many of them are just, they can't afford to have the programming, to the type of community services that Dixon Center has, a way to. And the skepticism is in this world of VSOs in higher education, for some gosh darn reason, there's become a bit of competition, and it's so counterproductive that it's like, well, it's my thing is the best thing, rather than saying, hey, Sam, or hey, Wendy, I'd like to stand up this program on our campus, and we can address them with best practices on another campus.
Let me actually set your teeth on edge. I've got a great...
She doesn't need any more reason to do that, Jimmy Mack.
But Lindsay said it. I have an idea. I'm going to do veterans issues for dummies. Well, maybe you should check out dummies who are in search of helping veterans. Well, no, I want to do my idea. I mean, the amount of it is.
Well, yeah, it's like, what's your intention behind? Why? What is your why?
As opposed to being like, well, here's how you can get involved with them. No, I want to. And the question is that we've got to find more people who are doing the buy-in, because they want to serve those who served, as opposed to they want to feel good about themselves. And that's the great distinguishing point. Brad and I talk about this all the time with Lindsay. The idea that vet ready is not the same as vet friendly, and vet friendly, if it doesn't transform into vet ready, really is about feeling good about yourself, as opposed to feeling good about actually helping those who need this help. How'd I do, and how are your teeth?
Nailed it. It's just an unfortunate reality, and it's human nature. It's just, it's the way a lot of people function, and it is a disservice to our veterans. So my story is I did some work supporting veterans who were deploying, and I desperately wanted to give back. I come from an Army family, and there was no way for me to give back as a civilian. I had no idea what I could possibly do to serve those who were doing something that I chose not to. Then when the post 9/11 GI Bill came around, I said, aha, I'm a higher ed person. Our schools are going to need assistance. So when these students come to school, as our motto is, they are successful to, through, and beyond their post-secondary objectives, whatever they may be. There's a big change right now in terms of alternative pathways. So it may not be a 4-year degree, and that's fine. But we in higher education at the entry point need to do better with advisement, so that folks are not getting 700 credits that are useless, or a degree that's not in line with what they ultimately want to do. I mean, I've met a gentleman just a couple of years ago who was getting a bio degree because he just liked bio. Like, he had a job, and good for you. But that's not the norm. You know,
Good for you if you have that time to kill.
exactly.
All right, let's pivot here. Pivot. And to talking trucks here, because that's why, I'm assuming we've hooked up with, as you've hooked up with the good people of FASTPORT
Yeah, absolutely.
and what they do there so well. So you're launching the Trucking Business Academy. And what's cool, here's the through line that I think is so cool. You're not just helping vets get a CDL, you're helping them become business owners. Bingo. And that's the big piece. And the idea that a truck driver we're seeing this more and more, that they're getting in their head that they to equate the word truck driver with entrepreneur as well, and be like, oh, my cab is my office. You have one truck, you own a business. Done and go. So this is a cool piece. So why would you guys say, outside of sort of the obvious, why is trucking going to be such a powerful fit for veterans to set them up for success for as long as they want?
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges, and this is, I've been in this space for about the last 7 years, and one of the biggest challenges our veterans face is underemployment. Too many of veterans or too many service members leave active duty. They have this tremendous amount of experience. They've been entrusted with tremendous levels of responsibility. They've served in leadership positions, and all of a sudden they get out of the Army, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, or the Navy, and they're trying to find a job, and employers don't understand what that experience was. They don't understand the levels of responsibility and leadership. And a lot of our veterans get entry-level positions. Entry-level positions that,
misplaced.
have them
Highly
living from
misplaced.
paycheck to paycheck. Well, several years ago, we got involved with the Teamsters and with ABF Freight in a program to get transitioning service members training while they're still on active duty, getting a CDL, and then getting guaranteed placement with ABF Freight. I mean, what a win-win situation it was. Because not only were they receiving training before they left active duty so they could go right into a job, because that first year after leaving the military is the most dangerous. That's when we see the most challenges that first year. But they were going right immediately into a position, and it was a position that not only were they connected with their truck drivers, and a lot of the camaraderie that they had on active duty followed with them when they joined their local union, but they also were still continuing to serve. I was listening to the show earlier this morning, and
I'm sorry.
No, it was great. There was a story about a mother of three, a single mother of three, who's a truck driver in Alaska, and she drives this very treacherous route back and forth. And when I was listening to it, I was thinking, and I think someone made the point how this is like an example of national security. And I was thinking to myself, exactly, that's what the trucking industry provides, because service members, veterans, are hardwired to serve. Even when they hang the uniform up, you still want to think you're contributing, you're continuing to serve our country in some form or fashion. And that's what the trucking industry provides. Because a robust, dynamic trucking industry is critical for economic security. We all know that. But I love the point that was made earlier this morning. It's also critical to national security. So we were able, working with the Teamsters and ABF Freight, to provide that pathway into a career that's going to provide you wages and salaries that not only can you support yourself and your family, but really build a future around. And not a lot of jobs do that. But also you're in a position where you are continuing to serve. And not only the trucking, the larger transportation industry. So we have a long history of working to help create pathways like that. And the Trucking Business Academy is an example of that. This program is going to launch on Monday. We're very excited. 12-week online course that's going to teach the basics of what it means to be an owner-operator. A career field that has a lot of potential, but as we all know, it is hard to break in, right? It's hard to break in. There's a lot of challenges, and if you're not prepared for some of those challenges, it can be a really steep obstacle to overcome. So hopefully, this 12-week online course is going to help people understand the basics and be better prepared to be trucking owner-operators.
12 weeks, that's nothing.
I love the fact, though, that it's 12 weeks, and I
Yeah.
think Wendy might be with me on this. 12 weeks is a semester. That's a genuine bona fide semester. 9 to 10 weeks is a quarter. 12 weeks is a semester. That is what most people in the education sphere think is the time it takes to take.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard me. I love to throw out a number, and the disturbing number for those who are starting their business, becoming owner operators, is 80 to 90% fail within the first couple of years. So, and that's not because they're not good truck drivers. It's not because they're not good clients or they're not good business people. But the business part is where they often do get tripped up, right? So the business acumen is the part that we're giving them through TBA, right? The ability to know, be aware of all the regulations, be aware of how you keep yourself healthy on the road. And at the very end, they're going to walk away with a business plan that they've developed throughout the 12 weeks, focusing on each one of the modules that they can leave with. It will be reviewed and they can take to the bank, literally and figuratively. And they also can show it to potential clients, insurers, and so on and so forth. So we're going to give them the missing parts, missing pieces.
Well, and the other thing is, this is something that anybody who's been any sort of entrepreneur, the most tragic reason to go out of business isn't because you picked the wrong market or the wrong niche. This is the killer. There are people, I don't know if people know this, a lot of businesses fail because they weren't ready for success. And I can tell you the number of people who got too many orders, who didn't know how to prioritize orders, who literally, I know people that have started weatherization companies and were so excited that people were actually calling them to, like, you know, get their houses.
I got a client.
I got a client. I got a client.
Can't
I got
help
a client. And then suddenly it's like, where are you? And they couldn't ramp up quick enough. They didn't understand that. And that's where these kind of classes make a big difference, because sometimes you got to say, I don't have a staff for that. I'm sorry, we're all booked up. And it hurts to say that when it's money on the table, but sometimes a good business person says, we can't get to you until June.
Yeah.
And that's something you got to learn.
Right.
One of the things that we're learning, and interestingly enough, is at the onset, we were really directing this toward folks that were actual drivers. But the interest has come from a variety of different places. So there are some that we are assuming are maybe working for an owner operator, and they're do the back stuff, and this information will help them be a better assistant, be a better manager, and to do all that stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And it seems like a great fit. It wasn't originally how we started, but when you start thinking about it, these people are often the backbone of the business. So, we love the fact that they're also interested in taking this course.
And we've talked about this before, but Captain Danny was a guy we had on our show and did some work with. He'd done his 20 in the Air Force, and he was like, I don't know. He wanted to retire, but he's like, I don't know if I'm gonna, because he said, I have no experience in anything else. I have a couple friends who have done their 20. They're like, I don't have any experience.
Top
I'm
gun
like,
instructor.
Are you insane? You have, and then but like them figuring out, putting on. He's like, how do I make a resume? I'm like, just say everything you've done, and there's your resume. That being said, I said to Captain Danny, I was like, hey, meet us for dinner, grab an Uber. And he's like, what's an Uber? I'm like, oh, right. Okay, sorry. And I was like, just pick up a sandwich at that Amazon stop place. He's like, how do I use Amazon? I'm like, oh my God.
It sounds like me when I was trying to put on a suit as soon as I left active duty, trying to match my tie and stuff. It drove my wife crazy.
Get over here. Well, let's pivot again then, because SitRep for success, by the way, sounds like something I'd like to wear on a t-shirt. SitRep sounds for success. Obviously, it's more than a catchy title. And let's talk about the heart of this initiative. We've got about a couple minutes left here. The heart of this initiative, because, so many programs stop at transition, and this goes further. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, it's the holistic picture of well-being as a whole. Is that correct?
Well, yes, to some extent, but it's really broadened out of, and listen, I got to tell you, my boyfriend came up with that name. I can't take credit for it. But the point being that right now, there are so many things going on. There are so many changes in federal policy and federal budgeting, and they haven't necessarily hit quite yet, because layoffs, they may be getting paid for a long time. Like 30% of federal government is veterans, right? So what we want to do with this is to get an assessment of what the contemporary challenges are, like what's new as a result of all these changes. Like, we know VA appointments are being delayed, schools are cutting down different programming, and just get the pulse of where veterans are right now with all of this upheaval, if you will, and then put together a recommendation through our Dixon Center Research Collaborative, which is a group of about 25 nonprofits, higher educators, military retirees, and a couple active duty. And our job is to look at the data, figure out what the data means, and then put a report together on how we can address those needs, and then ultimately put together some events to circulate the information to those who can't afford to go to the big conferences.
Sure. And one thing I want to make sure that we don't forget to acknowledge is that yesterday, we've worked with FASTPORT for years. I worked with FASTPORT when I'm still on active duty. FASTPORT is a tremendous organization that's really making an impact on our military and veteran community. Yesterday, we signed a formal partnership with them to continue. We've worked alongside each other. Now we're going to work even closer together to create positive outcomes for veterans and their families. We're super excited about this, and we're really looking forward to this. And I would just say, if you want to connect with us, go to dixoncenter.org, DIXON, dixoncenter.org. And we also have a podcast, Service Before Self. So I always tell people, Google Service Before Self. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeart. We're on Apple, you name it, whatever the platforms out there, you can find our podcast. Please listen to our podcast because we bring organizations that are having an impact and we introduce them to the public. We make sure that the public's aware. So I encourage people to check out, again, Service Before Self. And
would you say anybody to check that out, whether you're a veteran, a truck driver, a family member, or somebody just what can I do? I don't know what to do, but I know I want to do something.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. We talk about that on every one of our show. We talk about how folks can connect. We talk about some of the challenges organizations have that are, to your point earlier, Lindsay, some of the challenges that organizations have or people just want to create something when they should maybe step back and just join something. So we talk about all of that. So it's really our audience is very diverse.
Maybe volunteer before you try to be the CEO is all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, welcome to the world, though. By the way, if you notice here, it is the FASTPORT Studios. If you are a partner of theirs, you are welcomed here anytime, Absolutely. And we're happy to promote your podcast as well. DixonCenter.org. Sam Whitehurst, Wendy Lang have both joined us this morning. Thank you both for your service in the public and private sectors, by the way. Thank you both.
And
Thank
Wendy's
you.
arms aren't crossed anymore. We've gotten her out of her cynicism. Yes.
Noticed.
Oh, yeah.
She relaxed in time for the interview.
Well, she said, I'm sitting by a fellow cynic, so things are going to be okay.
You balance each other out.
Thank you. #balance.